Yo, yo, yo! This is Steve, back with another episode of the Black Superheroes Matter podcast. Today we have Brian Lambert, and you can follow him at Brian_Wyckoff_Lambert. And Brian is an award-winning, lead-contributing writer at Wingless Entertainment. He specializes in bringing diversity to action/adventure, fantasy, and sci-fi worlds. Brian's current projects include War for the Sword, the CHRUSION SAGA Book 2, a CG animated feature film entitled RUBICON, and Justice, The Fall, an ongoing series for Wingless Comics, a division of Wingless Entertainment. And so we had an action-packed, jam-packed conversation, obviously talking about navigating COVID and what it's like to be a Black creator during these days. And so excited for you to hear his story and definitely check out his work. I wanted to take a break from the episode to let you know that we have some merch that is available. Over at Iltopia Studios, you can find the Black Superheroes Matter art book, which is a collection of illustrations that reimagine your favorite superheroes through the eyes of children of color. We also have a bunch of sticker packs, over 120 different sticker designs of your favorite superheroes. More importantly, we have our Color Me Super coloring book series. Definitely check out the merch at shop.iltopia.com or blacksuperheroesmatter.com. And now, back to the episode. Cool. So, again, thank you for taking the time to hop on the podcast and share a little bit about what you do and talk to me for a little bit. But, how's everything going with you?
First, I want to say thank you for having me. I think, like everyone else, it's a very trying time in a multitude of ways. It's really easy to say that we've never been in a time like this, but like the reality of having never been in a time like this, it is stifling for some people. On one end, you'll see memes that are like, Shakespeare wrote King Lear, during a plague, and so that kind of spurs you to, hey, we need to do more. But also there's that empathetic side of everyone that it's really hard when you see other people hurting, when you see, your family hurting, when you see just all the things that are happening. It's fairly difficult for everybody. So while I've had my own, I guess, struggles or travails, I did lose my aunt in March to COVID. So that was very, very difficult for not just me, but my entire family.
Yeah.
So it's again, there are a lot of buzz phrases that it's easy to say that, this is going to be the new normal. We have to we're used to the new normal. But like getting used to the new normal is very difficult. Change is hard. Change is something that, rips away what you used to have and replaces it with something new. And obviously that's going to be painful, some more painful for others than others, but it's a thing that happens, and so we live and we learn and we try to do better. And that's kind of where I've been with everything, regardless of if it's a friend I'm consoling, if it's myself, if it's my mother, if it's my uncle, whoever, just to try to be strong and see a path through what we're at right now.
Yeah, man, it's it's, I think, sort of having to confront that whole non-essential label for a lot of people has definitely been difficult, because I lost one of my cousins. I guess it has, over March as well, and it's just, for, I think, Black people in particular, I think it hits a lot closer to home because it really adds data and it accentuates and sort of exploits all the the disparities that Black people face with healthcare and with navigating health and everything. And it's just,
I think a very telling sign of the times and of what Black people especially have been saying for a long time, even before this happened, is like you legitimately had someone like Serena Williams go in and almost die in childbirth because they weren't listening to her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Serena Williams, like one of the biggest athletes of all time, right? You have Meghan Markle, who is royalty, right?
Yeah.
She almost dies in childbirth because they're not listening to her. And at that point, you can't say, oh, it's just because they didn't know. No, it definitely has a color shield to it, and it is hard. For myself, thankfully, I've been able to work the entire time. I'm a quote-unquote essential worker, which is a double-edged sword. I don't know how many times I've been on the phone with family members and friends and people who, care about me. And they're like, hey, man, like, if you need to be away, like, be away, because it is a dangerous situation. And I do deal with the public in my job and, on and on and on. And there are so many people that have to do that. You have to make the decision between, like, am I going to put food on my table and endanger my life? Or am I going to stay more protected and potentially, starve or get evicted, or all these other things that in this first world country and the, strong in the world, et cetera, shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just very interesting. And I feel like quite often people talk about like, we've never been in this situation before and all this. And in reality, like if healthcare is struggling, if medicine is struggling, if doctors don't know what's going on and are struggling, then like that should really put things into context. Like the last thing you should be doing is running over to your, like rioting or looting over at the state capitol trying to get, the government to open up. You should be like looking to take care of yourself. You should be looking out for other people, because, it really shows that, it really just kind of shows where people's heads are at, where, it was a problem. I mean, people were really, really, gung ho with, lockdowns and everything early on because people were dying. But then once people found out that like it was a whole bunch of black people and old people dying, then people were like, oh, okay, well, we need to, like, our kids are hungry. It's like everybody's kids are hungry.
Exactly. So one of the crazy things about it is, and I've talked about this before, and obviously I put a bunch of Facebook kind of stuff up or whatever, memes or whatever, but is people are clamoring for hairdressers to go back to work. You know what I mean? Like, you're not clamoring for. There are very few people that I see saying like, I need to go to work because I'm going to get evicted, like because my family won't have somewhere to stay. Those people of any color, right? I empathize with them 100%. Right? Because, again, that's a situation that should not be happening in America. So that makes sense. If that's what the protest was, if the protests were, hey, we can't eat, like this is, 1920s, hey, we can't eat, so we're protesting so that we don't have to be on a bread line. Okay, I'm all right with that. That makes sense for everybody. But you have people protesting, like, seriously, how many times I need a haircut? Don't ruin my golf. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go outside. Like, are you serious? So you're willing to risk people's lives for your comforts. And just like you said, when the numbers were just the numbers and it wasn't done by race, or they hadn't really figured that out or calculated that out, and then it looks like more minorities are dying now, obviously because of hospital care and all these other things that are intrinsic to America. Now it's like, oh no, we got to get back to work, man. Hey, everything. Let's go back to the way it was. No, there is no the way it was anymore.
Yeah, like it's
and it's insane to think that people would want to. Every job has shown at the very least that you don't need to be there 5 days a week. At the very least, every single job in America has shown people can have a 4-day week. And that's like the smallest, slightest thing. Everything could do that.
Yeah. And I think, like one of the big things is healthcare. I mean, healthcare, very rarely are people working 5 to 6 days a week. They might be working like 12-hour shifts, or they might be doing something, but they're only working like 4 days a week. I mean, obviously now people are probably, working a whole lot more because of the demand, but like it does sort of like, and I didn't really realize it that, like, think about it that way, but like it does really show sort of like the obsolescence of how we've been sort of living and striving towards our careers and all those things. And then, literally overnight, all that stuff is just like irrelevant. You could have been working on stuff that actually you enjoyed, because you could probably still be working on that right now and making money off of it, opposed to a career that you kind of, had to get yourself up in the morning and struggle to get through. And now you're at home you're at home watching Netflix because you're non-essential and your job probably doesn't have a opportunity for you to work from home. It's just,
it's insane how the value that we put on things that literally have no value, and and these things themselves have proven they've got no value. And it's I don't know. I think to coin a phrase or whatever, it's the myth of America. It's the myth of the stock market. Hey man, the market is doing really well, so the economy is doing really well. No, no, no. That's just the market doing really well. The economy is still ridiculously bad for the majority of the people, 90% of the people out there. That, the two things can coincide, but that doesn't mean that they do. And it's the same thing. Oh man, we've got all these jobs, but then something happens and all these jobs immediately go away because we never really had them.
Yeah.
We were just giving them out to people so that we can say oh no, see, look, man, unemployment's down, but they didn't really have any real depth to them or any real essence to them.
Yeah, it's like with all these jobs, how many 401ks were produced? Exactly. How many savings accounts were opened?
Exactly. And even think about 401ks, right? We have 401ks now because companies stopped doing retirement. Like it used to be, even with Ford, right? Like some of the, the barons of yesteryear. Okay, hey man, you work for me for 20 years, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life, basically. Like you're going to have this money so that you can live for the rest of your life. Companies found out, like, wait a minute, CEOs and everybody else, shareholders, wait a minute, we can make way more money if we don't do that for people. So instead of giving them real retirements, we're going to give them a little piece of money every month so then they can save it and we can put it in this slush fund, basically. Like it's such a, again, you work for somewhere, anywhere for 20 years and then you've got to go get another career for 20 years and then hopefully you retire at, 65 or 60 somewhere. And hopefully you have enough money with your three things combined, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's ridiculous, actually.
Yeah.
It just and especially we're not on the gold standard anymore, right? If we were on the gold standard, which means we have this finite amount of money at some point, like it's gonna, dry up. Okay, it makes a little bit of difference. But we're on market shares now. So while money has value, money has purpose, is what I should say.
Yeah.
The value is based on speculation. So it's not any intrinsic value. Right? It's value based on what we think it's going to be. So to say that we don't have money for this program or don't have money for that program or don't have this or don't have that, but it's like, but you put $3 trillion into the stock market within 4 days of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we had $3 trillion somewhere. We should have put that $3 trillion into people's pockets.
Into people.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like the companies aren't the ones that are unemployed. Like it's just,
exactly.
the companies aren't the ones that have to pay bills, and so it's just this is the world we live in. It's kind of I always say that, but like it's kind of surreal sometimes to think that like this is what we went to school for to deal with this.
Yeah, right. So what I think is like, and I've talked to like, a couple old professors, couple old teachers about it, and, blah, 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 just people in general, is I know we call it capitalism, right? And I know people, quote unquote, get scared of socialism. We talk about all these other isms. But the reality of it is, in my opinion, we actually never left feudalism. 100% never left it, right? We renamed it, we repackaged it. But if you think there's some people on the top, they have fiefs that they give their stuff to, and then they give some more stuff to the knights, and then they give some more stuff to the barons, you know what I mean? And on and on and on. And then you have the peasants, and the peasants are the ones that are fighting for everything. Like you said, these companies and corporations, that's the house of the Tudors, you know what I mean? Like they're going to have a war, right? But they're not going to die. They're not going to go out. But all these people on the ground floor are. And all these people on the ground floor that are still, heralding this idea of we've got to do this because this is what they said. This is what they said is awesome. Someone told me that if we spread all the money around, then nobody's going to have it, or it's somehow there because I did more work. And it's like, bro, you don't see that doesn't make any sense, like at all. Like you're saying something, but you're just stringing words together that don't actually make sense. If you really think about them, like you having the equal amount of somebody else doesn't make yours less. It's all fine. We can all have enough and do everything we want to do. It's not really a pie.
Yeah. It's like you could only use so much and you could only do so much. Like you can't do everything. And I think as a creator, you start to appreciate that more earlier on. And like when you get into sort of like being creative and I mean, in general, just making comics or animation or whatever, you'd be like, oh, I have this idea. I want to do this. I want to do this. Then after like 6 hours, you realize, oh, I'm not getting as far into this project as I expected to. And so maybe I wouldn't mind getting some help from this, like if I could get closer to that goal, I could do that. And so, it just takes I think that just kind of comes with experience and awareness and really being just hyper conscious of, sort of the space and time that you occupy.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
And knowing what you're good at and what you're not. Being able to admit, like, this is not my thing. I really like it, but it's not my thing. There is somebody better, somebody who I can assist and they can assist me.
Yeah.
And that's what society is about, right? Society got together because I had a cow and then you had like a wheat field and the other person had shelter. And we were like, wait a minute, as opposed to us only having one thing, why don't we get together and share this? And then we have like a bigger thing all together. Mm-hmm. And we forget some of those societal things in our quest for, this capitalist, American kind of myth. This isn't the old West where we're in the Homestead Act. And like, I can just go out somewhere and build a house and now it's mine. Like that worked for a time because they needed to expand. Yeah. That had nothing to do with the reality of the situation and the future.
Yeah, no, it's just not a thing anymore. It's just not a thing. Like going to cruise ships and all that. That's just not a thing right now. Like like going to movie theaters. Like literally, right? Like I just saw an ad for the new Scooby-Doo movie, and and they didn't say in theaters now. They said at home now.
Right, on Amazon. Yep, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I was just like, I was like, wow, like they literally just made movie theaters obsolete.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at Trolls World Tour, man. That made like $100 million. Right. You know what I mean? It made more than its last Trolls movie at home. Look, it makes sense. I love movie theaters. I love the experience. I love seeing it on the big screen, on and on and on. Yeah, maybe you'll catch me in one in 6 months. You're not about to catch me in one right now. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. No. And cruise ships, dude, I looked at the $100 tickets. I look at them like once a week, and I'm like, man, no, but it's not worth it though. You know what I mean? Like, even if I was as devil may care for myself, and it was just like, oh, it'll be all right. There are the farther reaching aspects of like your friends, your family, the people you're going to be around after, the people who, if you do get sick and do unfortunately pass, you know what I mean? Yeah. Who's going to mourn you? All these things. It's just too much. It's too much to gamble for frivolities. We're acting like some of these things are necessities. Like I need to go get my frosted tips done on my hair. No, you don't.
Like,
no, you don't.
You could do that at home. Nobody's going to see you because you quarantine, so you can mess up and nobody will know.
Exactly. These things are not necessities. Like this should be the most awesome time. I mean, it's horrible, right? But it should be an awesome time, again, to get that home work-life balance, to find that balance with your family, like all these other things. But again, you have to be able to open yourself up and communicate with people and we use our jobs to hide. Yeah. You know what I mean? We use certain things to hide. Because we're there so much, because we become slaves, so we need to be there from this time to this time. We're not even working 9 to 5 anymore. Now it's like 8 to 5:30 because you don't get your lunch. That's not included. So you start cutting into these things just so that you can occupy the time, as opposed to really connecting with people and being with people. And even though we have to be further away, this is the perfect time to connect with those people that you have to be close to or that you can be close to. And we're not really taking advantage as much as we should. Yeah. Like, we need to realize, no, so that when you do go back to the job, you can say, hey, man, I don't need to be here 5 days a week. Like, I can be here 4, do the exact same job, get everything done, and I can still have time with my family. I can see my kids grow up. You know what I mean? Like, I can kiss my wife before she goes to work. Things like that. And it's just not something we're doing because we're acting like these stupid things are necessity. I got to go surfing. I got to go to the beach. I got to go kayaking. Like, if you don't knock it off, that's not essential. That's not necessary.
You better play that in the game. You better play GTA or something.
Right? Right? It's not necessary. It's really not.
Yeah. And so what are you doing creatively? We like, you're an essential worker. You're out there, pretty putting your life at risk to to pay bills and like improve the lives of other people. But what are you doing creatively?
Creative, I have to say creativity has been my saving grace right now. Like I said, the blow to my family with my aunt was really, really hard. So, everybody deals their own way. My way, I had to really dive, even though I was already doing it, I had to dive even further into the creative side and creative part of me. And so Wingless Entertainment, which is my company, currently has a few projects. Wingless Entertainment itself, its animation division, is working on an animated short film right now, written by a really brilliant guy by the name of Michael Ralph, and it's entitled Fishing, and it's about the prison system and how inmates communicate through a thing called phishing, where basically they tie things on lines or pieces of bed, sheets and stuff, and they send it to each other. So it's a story of that, and it's really great. It's going to be really awesome. It's going to be very informative and accessible for all ages, even though it's some pretty heavy material. The next part is Wingless Comics. We are going to have our first release, our debut issue, on Kickstarter in June. June 12th is actually going to be our release date. It's going to be our title hero, Justice. He's our flagship guy. It's going to have some hefty surprises in there, posters, the whole packages, everything. So I really dove into that. We also have I have my writing partner, Malachi Bailey. His hero, who he wrote in novel form before, is transitioning to comic books. His title character is named Her, and she will debut her 0 issue in that same Kickstarter campaign in June. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be really great, chock full of surprises and just, narratives and stories and a couple Easter eggs for people. We also have a crossover that we're doing with 2 other studios, Concept Moon Studios and Constant Hustle Comics.
Okay.
In October, debuting. It's gonna be a 5-part crossover starting in October. Named is Nightfall, titled Nightfall. And like I said, I just really, really had to dive into the creative part to keep myself, sane and healthy and able to do what I need to do in this time of crisis.
Oh yeah, and I think that's really kind of the name of the game at this point, because I think for me, I got into being creative because I used to play football, was a student athlete, played at Oregon State in Hawaii, and I had 2 hip surgeries. And so when you have your second hip surgery and you're playing football and you're a defensive back, the one of the things that goes through your mind is like, all this time and effort that I put into, my craft and my sport, I might not be able to do this when I quote unquote recover. And so it really forces you to soul search and really dive deep into something, and so I'm not a musician. I enjoy music, but I'm not a musician, so like music wasn't really an avenue that I could really explore. But I used to airbrush in high school. I used to do like airbrush t-shirts and stuff back when that was in the Bay Area. If you if you knew somebody in the Bay Area, like freaking airbrush is where it was at in like 04, 05, like that was a thing. And so I was kind of in that scene. And so I just kind of, took a step back and was like, I really enjoyed that. Let me just dive deeper into, being creative. And I ended up exploring comics because of that. And so it's just, it really sort of gives you an outlet because, being creative takes time. And, over time, it just becomes therapy because you're not thinking about, the stressors of life. You're just focused on really just that one task or that one project that you kind of came up with just to kind of see it come to life. And, it's, I kind of feel fortunate enough to, have the resources to sort of explore that still. But it does become an avenue to really inspire other people to sort of overcome their obstacles, even if they aren't as creative.
Yeah. Creativity is it's cool, and it's also another one of those double-edged swords. And I'm glad you mentioned, sports, right? Because as an athlete, I played in high school too. Strong safety. You do your thing, right? And if you leave it all on the field and you get all emotional and you're angry and you're whatever you are, right? And even at the end of the day, you lose a championship game, you let some tears, fall. No one really faults you for it, right? Because it's an emotional kind of thing. You're putting your all into it. Being able to translate that type of emotion to a creative field, I love being able to do that and being able to explain it to people sometimes, because you do have creatives that will be misunderstood. Oh, they're temperamental, they're angry. No, sometimes they're just passionate about what they're doing, and it's hard to express that because they're expressing everything they can through their passion, and it's a very, warlike mentality sometimes. Sometimes you have to go, and like you said, you have to be stuck on that one task. It's just like when you're in the middle of the game, you can't be thinking about, oh man, yeah, I got a test later on, and I got this. Oh, I'm gonna cook some fettuccine later. Like none of that, right? You've got to be focused on like, okay, they're gonna hike the ball. Okay, I got to step. I got to turn, pivot. You know what I mean? What's he gonna do? You've got to be locked in. You got to be dialed in. And when you get that same laser-like focus, as an artist, that's when you see some of these greats. That's when you see Michael Jackson's, Beyonce's, Kanye's, old Kanye anyway. I'll say old Kanye.
Yeah, we got
Jay-Z,
to mention old Kanye.
Right? Yeah, old Kanye. You know what I mean? But that's when you see these Will Smith. You see these guys that are laser focused, and you see that on the creative side where it's the same, you know, in anything. And it is a great and amazing and really freeing feeling to be able to do that. And then further to provide that to other people. When you can talk to, one of my best experiences or favorite experiences is at conventions, man. When I see kids and they're like a little shy, but they want to come and talk to you, or see, you know, the posters that they want to ask stuff, or they want to ask, how do I get into it? Or, hey, should I keep writing? It's great to be able to talk to them and say, like, yeah, you should. Yes, you should draw. Like, yes, I want to see you here behind the table next year, because you can see the light in their eyes. You know what I mean? That same one that somebody saw in yours when they were talking to you about it.
Oh yeah, man. And there's nothing that can really replace that feeling, because, you know,
Exactly.
like, I didn't expect, when I first started this, I didn't expect to, one, be hosting a podcast talking about this stuff, but also just being able to, like, go to conventions all over the country and share the work that I'm doing, that I really just was working on in my room, and have it resonate with people that I didn't even know existed. You know, I think it's something that really really sort of puts the value of the work into context, because quite often, you know, we have our own personal reasons for doing the things that we do, but when it's put out there and people sort of consume it and internalize it as their own, and they identify with it, then it no longer becomes just an outlet for us. You know, it becomes more of a community service in ways where, you know, it provides so many more things that, like, we quite often didn't even really think about when we were creating it.
Yeah. No, I really feel like it's a pretty amazing experience, and it's I mean, it really is like akin to building a building, or creating a structure, or creating in general, which is why I love when people, they've made the movement to calling a lot of people creators, even if they're just the writer or the person who thought up the idea. I think it is great, because you do have to create this whole structure behind whatever you're doing when you want to do it well, when you want to do it correctly, and you are creating this mythology, and you're creating, again, like you said, you're creating more than just yourself. You're creating this communal kind of idea. You know, say what you want about Superman, which I'll say it. Superman stories are super boring right now, because he just punches a lot of things. I love Superman, but in order for him to win, he just punches something again.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have to, like, use his brain or do anything else. But, you know, after shading Superman there, he created, like, an idea. Like, how many Superman knockoffs are there? Some good, some bad. How many people did, you know, Jerry Siegel and Schuster, did they get other people to imagine, man, I could do this too. I could have this hero. I can think, you know, slightly differently. And it spurred this whole movement. And they're not the only ones. Obviously, Superman is just the most popular and the biggest. But, you know, just thinking on that scale of, you know, affecting other people with what you're passionate about, and getting them to be passionate about whatever it is they're passionate about. It's great. It's the same. It's just like music. People put out music so that people feel something. You know, people do paintings because they want people to feel something. An architect will make a building because they want somebody to feel something, because it's beautiful, and it's beautiful to be counted among that group. You know, that group of artistic, creative, amazing people. And there are millions out there, and it's great to see it flourish and to see it grow.
Yeah, and man, it's just, you know, I think that's the beauty of this age, is that if you have an idea, you can find, and you don't have the resources, you could find the resources, or you could get the resources. It might take some time,
Yes.
it might take some effort, but, like, really,
Yeah.
you know, like, if you have the drive to see an idea forward and see an idea come to life, you could literally create that from the ground up, and there's very little
Yeah.
that can stop you. You know, there's very little that could really get in your way.
Yeah.
You know, outside of, you know, the obvious money and time things.
Hmm.
But, you know, one of the things that, like, I'm really curious about, because you mentioned conventions and stuff, is how is this sort of, you know, convention, lack of convention scene, affected, you know, your plans for putting stuff out?
So I just really started hitting the convention scene this year. So thankfully, I wasn't dependent on that, monetarily, which a lot of people don't realize. Like, comic books are super expensive to make. It's kind of funny because you can get a poster made for considered like a tenth of what it takes to get a comic book made, if that much.
Yeah.
You can get a poster made for that, right? But then you can sell your poster for $20.
Yeah.
And now the comic book that costs 10 times that to create, if you sell it for more than 5 or 10, people are looking at you like you're insane. So again, thankfully, monetarily, like, I didn't have to worry. I wasn't dependent on conventions for my releases. And I've sat down again with Malachi, with my partner, my writing partner, to make sure that we have like a strategy for how we're going to do conventions and putting that together. So we've missed a couple, and that fan interaction, you can't put a price on that. So those are things that are missing. But in terms of releases, we're still on schedule for that. We're still on track for that. I miss being around people. I miss being around other creators. I went to Black Comics Day, which is in San Diego in February this year.
Okay.
Keith and Jones of Kid Comics put it together. It was this really, really, really great event at the World Beat Center, owned by Makia Dredd Williams, and it was great, right? So it was just really, the vibe was really cool. I've been to enough conventions as a vendor and as a just a con goer to, sometimes it can feel awkward for us. Sometimes it's hard. You have people looking at you like you shouldn't be there, or do you even know comics? And you're like, dude, I've been knowing comics since I was 3. You get all those little microaggressions. So having been at Black Comics Day, it was just beautiful. Everybody pitched in. I was helping people set up their tables after mine was set up. People helped me set up mine. We got everything going. We're talking, throughout the day, at the end of the night. It was just a really, really good environment. And I miss things like that. I wanted to go to BlurredCon this year. Obviously, that's not happening. There are a few more that I wanted to hit that are not happening. Cons may pick up at the end of the year. We'll see how that goes. But, just some of that communal aspect, man, and just not being able to have that part of it sucks.
Yeah.
That's the part that's hard. That's the part that where you really want people. Not only do I want people to get eyes on my book, that's great. Like, I don't get me wrong, 100% want people to read it, right? But I like also being able to be at a table and somebody doesn't know about it, and I'm like, yo, can I give you the round robin of my characters? Can I just talk to you about it? And I've gotten more business and more interest being able to just talk to people, say, hey, come and check it out. Flip through the book. No, go ahead and look at it. And then you can answer their questions and kind of geek out with them. It's that I miss that aspect of it.
Yeah. It's just, we just don't have the opportunity to do that. And I think that, quite often when we talk about sort of like diversity in comics and diversity in animation and all those things, people will often try to really, I guess, avoid the personal aspect that's associated with it. Like, people often try to say, well, it's not going to be successful because there's no numbers to back it up, or it's not financially viable, or all these sort of things to to deflect. But it's really like, conventions and Kickstarter and really people's personal stories and why they're doing these things, and really just showing the people behind the work. It's what, has really brought things to the forefront, and has often combated a lot of the, the things that traditionally Black creators have to deal with, because it's one thing to, send a cold pitch, or, send a pitch deck to a company to try to get publishing. But when you're standing in front of people and you're, telling your story and people are buying into it and buying your stuff, then it's like, okay, well, how is this not a financial success when people were, finding out about it today and buying it 2 minutes later, Yeah.
And with the tools at our fingertips now, you really can't, with Square and PayPal and, all the other services, Cash App, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all these other services, you can run the numbers on people now.
Yeah.
It's not the old ways where you're like, well, yeah, no, I made, $100, and then there's nothing to prove it. You're not writing up receipts and slips. No, you're running it through the Square card now. So you can say, hey, man, okay, look, I moved 500 units in 2 days.
Yeah.
So, that says something. There is a market for it here. You can have that data to back yourself up. which is great. You know, there are just more platforms. I remember before, or right around when the first Matrix came out, the Wachowskis gave an interview, and they were, how did you get into the industry and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, yeah, we got in with Marvel and we did this and that. And it was, at that time, it was like, well, how do you even, what is Marvel's address? Is there like a Marvel city? Like no one knew anything, right? Like it was hard to get people's eyes on you. But now again, with the internet, with Kickstarter, with Facebook, with Instagram, with YouTube, on and on and on. You just never know who's watching, which is the greatest thing ever, because you can just be pushing your product in a way that you're passionate about, in the way that you want, and they come to you, or they see it, or like you said, you can have the data. Hey, this is my engagement over the last month and a half. These are my numbers. This is who I'm reaching. This is what I'm doing. Here you go. So let's talk business now. It just opens up so many doors that even after it opens up that door, right? People still try to close it. People still want to close off Black people. People still want to close off women. People still want to do all these things that make no sense in the world to do, and they do it out of fear. But it's so much easier to combat when you do have the data. Yeah. When you can say, hey, you want to say numbers? Okay, here are numbers for you. When you don't have it, well, I don't know about the content. Well, here's my page and here's my history of content. Here's everything you need to see. Yeah. So it makes their arguments invalid, which is great, which is what you want to do. You want to invalidate arguments that invalidate us.
Yeah. And quite often, I think people, particularly like, people that are coming up, it's really easy to kind of just like get hit, like dive deeper into that rabbit hole with freaking Comicsgate and all these different things that are going on, because one, we're in kind of the information age and everybody's just creating content just to create it at this point. And but really it's like it can hinder the creative process, because at the end of the day, the worst thing that you can do as a Black creator is not have content. If you're trying to break into comics, if you're trying to break into animation, if you're trying to break into any of these things, the first thing that you need to do is you need to have content. You need to have pages. You need to have a reel, enough to make a reel. You need to just have work done, so that you could show and prove that, like, it's something that you're taking seriously, because that's. It's
funny that, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, like it's just, if quite often for Black people just don't take us seriously. If it's not a ball, or if it's not, trying to rap or do something, like people aren't going to, they don't see us doing this stuff. So they just think it's kind of just a fluke, or you're just doing it for fun, Yeah,
it's weird. Like I said, it's funny that sometimes we don't concentrate on that, because, and it's funny that you bring up like rapping, right? Because when everybody was a rapper, right? Everybody always had a CD on them, right? Everybody did. Like, oh, hey, you want to hear my mixtape? You want to hear my mixtape? Everybody had one. But now we're in this age where people are, like you said, you should have a reel. You should have, some, your social media should be, strategized and on and on and on. And people don't have that. Like, I have all my stuff now in a way to where if someone's like, oh, hey, could you send me a sample of your writing? I can link them in immediately. Here's 5 samples. Boom, right on my website. Here you go. If you need more, if you need a certain type of thing, let me know, because I can provide that. And it's the same, just applied to a different medium. The hustle part of it is just having your quality out there and doing what you do best. I think that we are a very creative people, so sometimes we get caught with the side doors and side quests, and it's like, no, man, stay on your path. You got this one thing that you're doing really, really well. Do that thing well. You'll have time to do everything else that you want to do. Oh, I got this other character. I got this other thing. I got 3 or 4. No, man, you have to really, really get that one down pat and make sure that's super tight, because that's the one that you're launching the ship on.
Yeah.
And then the other ones, like I said, you're always going to have time to do them, but launch your ship on a solid idea.
Yeah. I think what comes to mind is the Dunning-Kruger effect, if you're like familiar with that.
Yeah.
Where we tend to come up with an idea with very little experience, and our self-esteem and everything will be just skyrocketing right now. And then once you actually start going down that path, get more experience, that like your self-esteem and your confidence just plummets. And it's not until you actually like start to develop more and more of a mastery that like your confidence starts to get higher. And quite often, just the intersections of so many things have really sort of like gotten in the way of like Black creativity or Black creatives, that we're in this sort of Renaissance age where it's like, oh, we need to, like, this is finally our time, but at the end of the day, like, we gotta create stuff, it's, finances and everything are always a problem. I mean, that's sort of the name of the game, especially for us. But there just has to be a way to overcome it, because the worst thing you could do is try to be upset and try to get opportunities. But if you only have one issue of a comic that you've been working on for 10 years, you're only going to get so far.
Exactly. I think one of the best and worst examples, because the community is kind of divided on it, is Cannon Busters.
Yeah,
I think Cannon Busters was a pretty dope idea.
Right.
I enjoyed it, right? But I enjoyed it, but I also realized how lacking it was. Like,
yeah,
and that's one of the things. And it's very hard for us to even be able to critique something like that, right? Because then not our community, but the outside community uses that as a way to say, see, they can't do it. See, they didn't fulfill what they were talking about. And it's not that he didn't have the ideas. It's not that he doesn't have the money behind it. It's not all of those things. It's just that it was, kind of formed, but not really, really as solid as it should have been.
Yeah.
As solid as it could have been. Like I said, I enjoyed it myself. I love the theme song. Some of the ideas in there were great. Obviously, some of them were humongous homages to other things, which is the way it should be. But when we're not, it's weird because we always have to put our best foot forward. It's just like everything else, right?
Yeah.
You have a guy who's a ball player, and he's not the best guy to come out if they said that he was going to be, oh, he's the new phenom. And if he's not the new phenom, then they get to go, see, none of them are phenoms. It's like, wait a minute. He's got to put his best foot forward every single day, every single time. Yeah. We're not really given that. We're not given the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
We're not given that, well, they're human. No, it's, hey, this is their one shot, right? And I do say their one shot, because in situations, so many situations for us, one speaks for every one of us, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that one person is everybody, but that's the way we're judged, and that's the way it goes. And so it's difficult, it's trying, but it's also amazing when you don't slip up with that. When you don't, and there, it brings in other issues that we don't talk about in the Black community. We're not talking about mental health issues. We're not talking about, what is it? It's an effect, and I can't call it up right now. What's called syndrome? Imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah, imposter syndrome.
Brain part, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, and that works symbiotically with the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Like, you're like, oh, man, you're down, your confidence goes down, and then it gets even worse because no one's going to like you, or do they like you? Was it even any good? You know what I mean?
Yeah, were you a handout?
We don't talk about. So, yeah, right? So we don't work through them so that we don't understand them, because, again, the moment you fall, then you're not given another opportunity.
Yeah.
Or the next person isn't given another opportunity. And it's just this really symbiotic effect and cycle that we have to combat constantly in order to prove not just that we're great at things, but just that we can do them, just as well as anybody else. It's not even to prove that we're elite at it. It's just, hey, we can do this too. Hey, we can create too. Hey, some of these programs by females are amazing. Like, get out of your brain and stop thinking men have to make everything. We don't. Yeah. Like, people in general have value. Give them that value. Let people tell their stories. Don't give me Gods of Egypt with Gerard Butler. I love Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
Don't give me Gods of Egypt with Gerard Butler. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, this is not what we're doing right now. Like, what? Like,
right?
It's just one of those things, Like it's one thing to, and I think for like Black creators in general, it's one thing to sort of see a project through that could be insurmountable at times, and it's another thing to live up to an expectation. And I think the two people that come to mind are, obviously LaShawn Thomas, because he's, kind of the person that's more relevant, but also like Aaron McGruder, It's
Mhm.
and people have mixed feelings about sort of the process of the Boondocks, and how that sort of like went about, and season 4, and all these
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
things. And but at the end of the day, like LaShawn, I mean, quite literally went to Japan to learn animation. you know and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and he I mean, he did something that like black people just wouldn't do. and
Mhm.
and I mean, I'm looking at my shelf right now, and I have the whole series of Boondocks comic strips. And it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, he has
Yeah.
pages.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
pages.
He
And
was working for a long time. It wasn't new. It wasn't an overnight success.
yeah, it's and he really fine-tuned his craft and found his voice, and figured out what he was trying to do. Yeah, there's going to be compromises, but I mean, that kind of comes with understanding business in
Mhm.
general, and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's just, yeah, it often becomes this sort of hyper focused lens on, were you able to be successful, and did you do everybody justice, and did you stay true to what the original mission is, and did you do all these different things that we're not talking about with another creator. If
Yeah.
freaking Joe
Yeah.
Blow down the street gets a movie deal, you're not talking about if he you know did took the opportunity and made the best of it, or did the opportunity
Yeah.
right. Like, it's
Mhm.
it's often pretty, it can be frustrating, but it's like, like, this is creativity. People are literally just making this stuff up and
Yeah.
seeing how it turns out.
It's a six. Yeah. Dumb and Dumber came out around the same time as Homeboys in Outer Space. Now, don't get me wrong, Homeboys in Outer Space was a stupid show, right? Hilarious because it was stupid, but stupid. But they're the same kind of like moronic humor. That's the point of them.
Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber is like, it's still heralded as like, oh, it was so funny. It's such a great movie. They, two sequels, right? Okay, good. I don't have a problem with that. But Homeboys in Outer Space comes out, and I remember all the commentary of, oh, because of Homeboys in Outer Space, like black people are basically getting dumber. Like, it's lowering the intelligence level of black people.
Yeah.
And that's, again, we're talking about something creative. So, whereas a movie called Dumb and Dumber doesn't lower the white intelligence level at all.
No.
That doesn't even go into people's brains, right?
Yeah.
But Homeboys in Outer Space does. Why are we judging, and why have we continued to judge things like that? Like, it just shouldn't even be a thing, but it happens all the time, and it's kind of ridiculous. Sometimes people need to be able to create and do what they do without being judge them on their creation. Don't judge them on being a spokesperson for the entire race.
Yeah.
If that's not what they're purporting. Now, if they are a spokesperson for whatever issue they are purporting, great, let's do that.
Yeah.
But
but
there are people who just put out happy rap, right? And they don't speak for the whole genre of rap. They put out happy stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no one should be a person who puts out rock and roll of a certain type is not judged for the entire genre. They just put out their music. Taylor Swift doesn't represent all the rock and roll, all the pop music, all whatever, but whereas Beyonce comes out and she represents all R&B. What? That's not fair. Now, don't get me wrong, she's torn it down for years and years and years. So she's held that mantle, pretty well.
Yeah.
But is it fair to her craft and to what she's really trying to do if she's not saying that's what she's trying to do? No, it's not.
Oh, man. I mean, just as you're talking about that, I mean, out here in Portland, we have the Cat rapper, and big shout out to him because he's black, but it's, he doesn't speak for all the black people out here in Portland. Like, all black people in Portland don't like cats. It's
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
but he's being creative.
Yeah.
And there's a space for that, and it doesn't have to define a particular amount of people. And on the flip side, a lot of the people that try to other people, and put people into boxes and stuff. I mean, if you cap on their red hat, then they start getting all in their feelings and stuff. And
Exactly.
and then those are the same people over here talking about, I want to get my hair cut and the government is oppressing me. It's like, okay, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, bro.
Those are the same people that are like, well, yeah, exactly, like you said, oh, we got to open up the government. It's my freedom to not wear a mask. but Ahmed Arbery should have stopped when they pulled up on him.
Yeah.
Wait, they don't have any authority. What are you talking about?
Like,
so your freedom is okay, but his freedom isn't. Like,
yeah.
And they don't see a problem with it. They
Yeah.
don't see that aspect, or they do. They know. You know what I mean? But it's so much easier to pretend that they don't. It's so much easier to act like, oh, that's not the case, and you guys are taking it different. You know, no. We see it. We're around. We've been around long enough to know.
Yeah.
We can tell.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so to sort of wrap up, I really appreciate the the conversation and everything, and really just dropping gems. And so,
man, I had a great time.
Where can people find your stuff at?
Okay, so all of our current material is online at www.winglessent.com. So that's www.winglessent.com. All of our social links are on the site there as well. You can find us on Facebook at Wingless Entertainment. You can find us on Twitter, Wingless Entertainment. You can find us on Instagram at Wingless Comics. We are definitely around. We try to reply to everyone who reaches out to us. We really appreciate all the support. Like I said, we'll have a Kickstarter for Justice Issue 1 coming on June 12th. We're going to start that off, and that'll be running for a month. We hope to see everybody again. We hope to hear from you guys. Tell us what we're doing. Tell us what you like. Oh, Justice Issue 0 is actually free on Wingless Entertainment right now. You can download that. It's a 12-page ashcan that kind of invites you into our world. So, please enjoy.
Okay. Cool. And, we'll definitely have all those links and everything out as we start to promote this. But yeah, I just really appreciate the time, and, just keep doing everything that you're doing, because, like, content and creators like you are really what are going to push the opportunities for a lot of us,
I really
like with
appreciate
everything
it.
else. Like, Black Panther is a success, so now we're seeing more and more stuff with Black people in it.
Exactly.
Like, I'm fortunate enough to like be in a time where like I could see that actually come to be, because I remember when growing up in the 90s, we started had like a big, we were inundated with it, with Martin and the PJs and Wayne Head and Static Shock, all those. But then when we came to the 2000s, post 9/11, all that stuff kind of just died down, and we had rock music.
Exactly.
And so,
no, real talk.
I'm just glad to see that, like, I'm seeing really just sort of like a resurgence of just like indie creators that are just making stuff and putting it out there, and just giving us stuff to like enjoy and identify with. And so keep doing what you're doing, because it's good to, I'm excited to see what it's going to be like on the other side.
Yeah, I am as well, and I thank you for the platform, and I thank you for the conversation. We'll have to do it again, man. I really appreciate it. It's great to be able to come on and not just talk about, what we're doing, but the state of things, and to see like this indie Black renaissance happening again in real time, and to be in a place to affect it is just great. And having people like yourselves being able to highlight it and give us a platform to talk. I can't put a price on that. We can't put a price on it. So I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so, be on the lookout, everybody, for everything that you guys have going on. And, just stay healthy and stay safe.
You as well, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. And so with that, we'll just call it a wrap. And there we have it. That is another episode of the Black Superheroes Matter podcast in the wraps. Again, the purpose of this podcast is for people to get exposed to a variety of different things that Black people are creating in the arts and entertainment industry. The goal is for this podcast to bring light to all those and those creators, because as a community, we have the opportunity to skirt some of the problems that we've seen in this day and age when it comes to expressing Blackness. And so if you love this, definitely check out the more work that we're doing. Go to @BlackSuperheroesMatter, or you can go to blacksuperheroesmatter.com to check out the blog and the write-ups that we do on these guests. And if you're so inclined, feel free to support my work at Iltopia, where we have the Black Superheroes Matter art book, the Black Superheroes Matter sticker packs, and even coloring books, activity guides. And so if you want to check that stuff out, check it out at shop.iltopia.com. It's all Black owned. I might add, they're all handmade products. And they're all made with love for the community that has really given me the opportunity to find my place in this world. And so, again, thank you for another wonderful episode. Thank you for listening. Feel free to follow all the stuff that Black Superheroes Matter is cranking out. And excited to share another wonderful guest with you on next episode. So without further ado, thank you very much.